afternoon, everyone. My name is Darryl Wilton. I'm an advanced care paramedic, president of the Ontario Paramedic Association, representing thousands of paramedics who advocate for our 1.1 million patients across Ontario each and every year. I've been on the front line of paramedicine for 22 years, and I've made it 2/3 of the way through the second most dangerous profession in Canada, fully knowing that only 4% of us will make it to retirement due to illness, injury, or death. For some of you, this talk might be a little bit difficult to hear today, and if you're suffering from trauma or vicarious trauma, I ask you to seriously consider if you actually need to hear me speak or not. I don't want to inflict any harm here. What I want to do is break down some barriers and do the same thing I signed up to do 22 years ago, which is saving lives. Like many of you, I've experienced hundreds of paramedics injured in the line of duty. Some of us have also witnessed critical injuries to paramedics, and yes, there's been worse. We're all here today because we know there's been worse. Our paramedics, our pilots have all suffered worse. It's not happenstance, it's not chance, it's preventable. It's especially preventable when people are genuine, compassionate, when people care. Satisfying some frigid legislation commitment to establish a plan is not caring if you think that somehow resolves and absolves all of us from doing more. I mean, people need to genuinely care, and the only way to do that is to demonstrate meaningful support for paramedics and value them in meaningful ways. We need to ask ourselves some difficult questions. Why do paramedics die in the line of duty? Why do paramedics take their own lives more than any other first responders in Canada? In 2012, the Ontario Association of Paramedic Chiefs released a white paper to government, actually rejecting PTSI, and rejecting presumptive legislation for PTSD. We've come a long way in the last 6 years. Our members pushed for change, the unions pushed for change, MPPs and MPs pushed for change. Frontline advocates created first-time ever social media movements. They pushed for change. Our police and fire partners joined with paramedics at ground level, and what did we do? We created a big blue tsunami, and we all pushed for change for all of you. The Paramedic Ride is one of the biggest groups in Canada pushing for that change. I'll tell you, in 6 years we've come a long way. The baby boomers are aging, the call volumes keep going up. Paramedics can clearly barely keep pace. We can't afford to lose a single 911 worker, yet somehow paramedics keep dying. Nobody really wants to talk about it, but we need to absolutely reject the double speak and the tap dancing. We need to come together as a profession, and that includes the Ministry of Health, our chiefs, our base hospitals, our unions, our associations, and all of the front lines. We need to be unwavering in our commitment to resolve a crisis in paramedicine. This isn't a matter of perspective. It's about indisputable facts. As the elected president of the Ontario Paramedic Association, I'm here on the Hill today to give you perspective on paramedic deaths per 100,000 people. In 2018 so far, 2.3 times more paramedics than police officers have killed themselves. Still 2018, 4.5 times more paramedics than Canadian Armed Forces members have killed themselves. And guess what? I'm still talking about 2018. The year isn't even over yet. Per 100,000 people, 26 times more paramedics than firefighters have killed themselves. We've come a long way together, but just think, 2018 isn't even over and we do have a problem. The ride is about establishing a Canadian Paramedic Memorial. The problem's this: I'm not the only person here who does not want to see more names on a paramedic memorial. I want paramedic line of duty deaths fixed. I want PTSI fixed. I want paramedic suicides fixed. I want this disease to be understood. I want the remedy to be meaningful, and I want each one of you to make sure it's front of mind. Paramedics keep dying because there's a cascade. One domino strikes the next. You can apply the same prevention mechanisms that we do for workplace injuries. If you don't resolve minor incidents, you'll eventually have a lost time injury. If you don't resolve your lost time injuries, you'll eventually have a critical injury. And if you don't immediately mitigate critical injuries, you're setting yourself up for fatalities. The lesson is this: we need to be meaningful about implementing a safety culture that prevents all forms of injury to paramedics, whether physical or otherwise, that especially dials it in long before injuries begin to escalate. If we don't do this, paramedics will inevitably continue to die. So how healthy are the paramedics who took time out of their lives during the last 4 days, or who came out to see the closing ceremonies today? Everyone here, take a look at yourselves. You're all resilient. You have all achieved. You've all endured a ride because you have tenacity. Everyone who made the ride is in the middle of a beautiful experience. Everyone who participated in the ride is investing in one another and filling that penny jar with little gifts. But you are not impervious. There's a disease and it's killing paramedics who are supposed to be serving Canadians. If we don't begin to address the little things in meaningful ways, we will be unable to interrupt this cascade. We will not stop one domino from tipping against the next, and paramedic deaths will continue. Every day, paramedics get called into profoundly high-risk and unpredictable environments. You guys know this. Just one wrong maneuver, one heavy lift, one hasty decision, one inattentive driver, one violent patient, or one occupational stress injury can initiate a torrent that results in a career-ending blow. Because of these unpredictabilities, we need to support one another. Every single paramedic on the ride, every single one of your colleagues, and everyone entering into this incredibly rewarding but equally arduous profession is at risk. Listen to me. All paramedics in Canada are at risk. Thinking paramedicine won't change you is like trying to walk through water without getting wet. We need to ensure that paramedics everywhere have somewhere to go. Just stop and think for a minute. This is how it starts. Every paramedic struggles to satisfy that constant, unrelenting expectation of idealism, although each day you're constantly sent, day after day, hour after hour, into far from ideal environments. And it builds. It builds and it builds, and those become broken might be fortunate enough to be approached compassionately by one of their colleagues, a close friend or a family member, as they're pointed towards help. But where do paramedics turn to next? No paramedic wants to be the originator of a 911 call. No paramedic wants to burden the already burdened emergency departments. No paramedic wants the triage nurse to ask you out loud in front of all of the other patient staff and paramedics, so what brings you in here today? No paramedic wants to be marched into the emerge department past every other paramedic on offload delay, every nurse and every physician they personally know. No paramedic wants to hear their first and last name called where everyone knows them, out loud, over the hospital PA system to proceed to registration. For professionals who are used to providing care and not relying on the care, it can be humiliating. Just the thought of it can be debilitating. Paramedics need somewhere confidential and safe to go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. More paramedics are dying by suicide than anything else because we have unique barriers. But we're not done. I have a vision. I have a vision where paramedics and our leaders are mindful, sincere, and fiercely protective of one another. I have a vision where everyone in leadership is genuine towards paramedics and understands that compassion is our passion. I have a vision where correlation is drawn between the well-being of our patients being directly dependent on the well-being of our paramedics. I have a vision where paramedics can enter crisis interventions that unequivocally ensure their confidentiality. I have a vision where paramedics feel there's comfort in caring. I have a vision where paramedics at all levels are there for one another, supportive of one another, love one another, acknowledge the neat gifts and tenaciousness of one another. I have a vision where all paramedics in Canada are able to endure all obstacles. All obstacles they come upon and survive to post-traumatic growth. I ask you to please carry this message with you. Please share your vision with those around you. Thank you for all that you've done. Thank you for making this trek across Ontario and Quebec to the nation's capital. On behalf of the Ontario Paramedic Association and our incredible members, I pledge to make sure that decision makers respect all that you do across our province as we serve 1.1 million patients day and night each and every year. Paramedics are family. We always will be. We have more in common than we do differences. We need to take care of each other. We need to respect one another. We are stronger unified together than we are with even one missing piece. I love paramedicine. I deeply respect all of you and all that you do. To the organizers and riders, thank you for making this happen. All of you are the spirit of a National Paramedic Memorial. Thank you.